Hey folks, everything new under the sun. Lots of interesting things happening. I want to try and connect the dots, and we're going to talk about Ezekiel 38 and 39, the war of Gog Magog, which includes a number of different nations and the people of the Russian area, the now controlled Russian area, and the leader of whatever that group of people is. Many people believe it's Russia, and think possibly could Putin be the leader of that? Certainly, geopolitical situations are turning up right now and developing as if that could be the case. Certainly, Russia is strong in the area. We're going to read news that, again, Russia is suggesting that they could use nuclear weapons if the second counteroffensive by Ukraine starts, winning. If Ukraine starts winning, if they start advancing, Russia could turn to that. And but before we get there, let's take a look at a couple of news items. We're in the last days, and ultimately, the devil is going to take everything he can away from you to make you lose your faith in God. The only thing that we will be left with in the end is our faith. Remember, even gold and silver will be cast into the streets. You won't be able to do anything with it. You can't eat gold and silver. It's not going to gold and silver. It's not going to save your life. So Satan, the devil, if we are around in the last days, and I believe we are, specifically in the 7-year period and the first half of that, which I believe is the tribulation, but not the great tribulation. I don't believe we're going to be here for the wrath of God. I think the wrath of God is the last 3.5 years. That comes, the red line is the destruction of the third temple, or rather, the Satan sitting in the third temple on the throne as God and declaring himself to be God. That's God's red line. That's where he says, okay, that's it. Now the great tribulation comes and the wrath of God falls. But before that, we're going to live in hard times where Satan hates the Christians and anyone who does not bow down to him. And so he will take everything away from you, your freedom, your liberty. He'll take your money, your clothes off your back. He'll put you in jail. He'll even kill you. You'll be put to death for the name of Jesus. And the lead up to that is this persecution of Christians, and not only Christians, but standing up for things you believe in that are obviously wrong in the world, but people of the world don't want to see the truth. They don't want the truth, and Satan doesn't want you to know the truth. He is the father of lies. So starting off with this one, this is Hedge. Pediatrician fired after raising alarm on the you-know-what things during U.S. Senate event. So I guess this was a bit of a whistleblower thing. There was testimony by this, educated pediatrician, very knowledgeable as it relates to this particular medical thing, and the younger groups of people, kids, and treatments related to it. And she was fired for misinformation. So in the last days, one of the easiest ways for the government to take you out is simply to declare you are a purveyor of misinformation, malinformation, disinformation. So be ready to lose your jobs, folks. That's going to be the first round of Satan kind of taking away what you have because you are not following the script. You are not bowing to the devil and to the lies and to the confusion. This is another interesting one in terms of government control. Power companies could remotely switch off EV chargers to reduce grid stress. Now, we all know that Teslas, for example, have to be connected to the Tesla network for access, for authentication, to be able to access charge points. If your car isn't authenticated and you don't have a updated subscription, active subscription to Tesla, well, you can't charge it. You can't go to Tesla power wall stations or whatever and charge up your Tesla. And at any time, technically, they could flip a switch and have the car drive itself back to the dealership lot if you don't pay your bills on time, if you don't pay Tesla. And this is the one thing I don't like about technology, the very easy access that the government has to it to simply shut it off. And that's why they would love to go to CBDC, digital currency, because if you're doing anything the government doesn't like, if they want to persuade you in a direction, i.e. to stay in your home, maybe during a pandemic, or maybe give you more incentive to take a jab of some sort, well, they could do it in one way by injecting digital money, or in another way by saying, you know what, you're not going to be able to go to theaters, you're not going to be able to travel on planes and trains if you don't have, whatever it is that they want you to, if you're not following the government sayings on it, or the health authority, for example. That's what happened during the pandemic, right? It's all going to be digitized. They're going to be able to shut off your phone and shut off your life and freeze your bank accounts. That happened in Canada with the trucker convoy. They freeze bank accounts without, well, I guess there were laws there, but it's, it was kind of unprecedented, honestly, and it happened to many more people than were actually involved in the trucker convoy. And so this idea of, any electronics can be shut off now at the whim of the government. If the government thinks you're doing something wrong, they're going to shut it off. And you're going to say, well, if you're not doing anything wrong, then what do you have, what are you worried about? Well, what if you disagree with the government on some stance and you protest? At that point, they would have just as much right to shut you off and freeze your bank accounts if you disagree with the government. And then the tables will have turned. And the lefties out there who like this sort of thing, it's going to come back on them fast and hard, and it definitely will. And they're going to recognize too late that this is a bad idea. Government control is a bad idea, and going all digital. The requirement to have a cell phone in this day and age, it's ubiquitous. You almost need a cell phone to do many things, because a lot of things you need apps for, and so. Even to get on trains and planes, a lot of times you need apps and QR codes and all these sorts of things. And I'm still without a cell phone myself, but it's gonna. I think at some point, some sort of piece of electronics is going to be pretty much required at that point to do any banking, to do any self-authentication. And of course, we know the mark of the beast is coming, the thing that's in your right hand of your forehead. And so this is a scary situation. Again, they can shut off your car if they want, and this is why I like internal combustion engines. Although they still have computers, but they're not as connected yet to the grid, to the government. They can raise the price of fuel, though, and that's what they're doing now to get us off gas and over to electric. So this is interesting. Zero Hedge, again, talking about Gog Magog, Ezekiel 38. Russia is getting stronger. Russia is starting to stand up to the United States in Syria. Russia is ready, quote-unquote, for a clash with the U.S. over Syrian skies. Not Ukraine, Syrian. And maybe this is where the battle starts. Russia starts battling U.S. in some significant way. And it's really a testing ground. It's been a testing ground for U.S. hardware against Russian hardware for many, many years, as U.S. and Israel has been there with advanced technology. And Russia has been kind of standing by, allowing it for the most part. But now Russia's saying, you know what? Your time is running out. You can't be in there. And why is the U.S. in Syria? Well, a large part of it is for money, for oil and gas, because they're kind of protecting wells in Syria. So it's money why they're there, not necessarily for humanitarian things. So Medvedev, this is where I mentioned where Russia is, again, mentioning nuclear weapons. Medvedev says Russia could use a nuclear weapon if Ukraine offensive wins. So again, they started the quote-unquote real counteroffensive started a couple of weeks ago now, where they said, okay, this is the real counteroffensive. The first one, that was just for show, whatever it was, but this is the real counteroffensive. And they apparently have made some inroads across Russian lines. But again, they're coming out again and saying, you know what? We have the ability and the opportunity and the will, should it be needed, to use nuclear weapons if it's deemed an existential threat to Russian land. The use of nuclear weapons, of course, in Ukraine is probably exactly what the United States wants, to kind of draw NATO into the bigger, draw NATO into the war, make it a bigger war, because they're making lots of money off it. U.S. is, probably arms manufacturers in Europe as well, making a lot of money off this. They don't want it to go nuclear, I'm sure, but they would be happy if it simmered along, and they were able to kind of use up all their old stock of ammunition and get the ball rolling for lots of government incentives paid for by the taxpayer, by you and I, to create more manufacturing for ammunition and weapons, munitions and hardware. Now Niger, let's talk about Niger. So the Wagner Group is in facing off against Poland, as I spoke about in the last video. But here is a situation where there was a coup in Niger, and the Wagner Group happens to be there. Last week's coup in Niger is already fast becoming an internationalized conflict. This is another thing that could bring NATO into it, as France is looking to get into that battle. As West Africa's nation's former colonial ruler, France has denounced and condemned the junta, while urging the ousted president Mohamed Bazoum to be immediately reinstated. Coup supporters are now attacking diplomatic locations and French interests, including French embassy in the capital. So if France gets into this, if the Wagner Group is involved in it, backed by Russia, and there's lots of Russian influence there, then again, this could turn out to be a NATO thing where they get involved. The junta has continued to step up anti-French rhetoric. It announced it was suspending export of uranium to France with immediate effect. Also, I believe gold production. They're limiting gold production there, and that's going to increase the price of precious metals. If you're not into precious metals, could be a good time to get into it now. Suspended all exports of uranium and gold to France. So the value of that is going to go up. Now we have this idea of Gog Magog, and it plays into this whole Niger situation. So this idea of Gog Magog that possibly includes all these different countries. Now they have their old names in the Bible, but modern day names could include, of course, the Soviet Union, modern day Turkey, which consists of Kazakhstan, Kyrgyzstan, Uzbekistan, Turkmenistan, Tajikistan, Russia, Turkey, Iran, Sudan, Libya, and possibly Afghanistan, Azerbaijan, Armenia, Algeria, and Tunisia. Now those are a lot of names, but as we'll see on this map here, you can see at the bottom left-hand corner, you see Libya. That's a big country there, and Tunisia up above Libya, and then Egypt. And then going down, you see Sudan, and then Chad going to the left, Chad, and then Niger in the far bottom left corner. So is Niger one of these countries that is led by Gog and the land of Magog with allied nations into Israel? And it could very well be. Of course, we know that the areas there were not the same borders as they are now. So you can see in this, now this is a small image. I wonder if I can make this bigger. There's a bit bigger image, but you can see Niger just below the blue, dark blue section there, or maybe you see it as purple, where it says Put. And Put is the land area of Libya and Algeria. But if you look closely, it actually covers the northern part of Niger. And Niger and Libya, they are in large part controlled by Russia, a huge Russian influence there. And all that area on the south part of the Mediterranean, the south shore, is controlled by Russia, Russian influence there. And also, Sudan, Ethiopia, they've got their tentacles, as does China in many places. And so we have this setup where Gog and the land of Magog and allied nations could march on Israel. And with this coup in Niger, this is one more indication that Russia really has a stronghold in that area. They're paying for the Wagner Group to support that coup, and they are there. And Wagner has suggested they can supply even more troops to that area to back the coup and the folks that put that in place. So that's interesting. Here is so there is the list to show it more clearly there. So Rosh, Russia, Meshach, Tubal, Moscow, Tobolsk, former capital of Siberia, Persia, which is Iran, Kush, which is Ethiopia, Sudan, Put, which is Libya, Algeria, Gomer is Turkey, and Beth Togarmah, the stands of the former Soviet Union. So again, we read a bunch of those stands in this particular image here about the theories of the countries that are involved in it. So I just want to say that I think it's significant. This coup could mean more than we think it does. It could really kind of show us the tip of the iceberg of the nations in Africa that are allied with Russia, which is all stage setting and a setup for them all to follow Russia into Israel. And there will come at one point, a time when these all march on Israel. So incredible things to see. This is a big move in Niger, how that's going to play out geopolitically and on the world stage as it relates to Israel, etc. I think the answer is that it's giving Russia more and more power, more and more angles to come at Israel with, more and more partners who will be willing to walk with Russia into Israel, because it's going to be all about money. Everything's about money in this day and age, and there will be people who are desperate, who want money, who want food, all promised by Russia and the power that they are, and so they'll go along with Russia and the leader of Gog, or Gog rather, and the leader of Magog, to march into Israel in the last days. And I think that probably comes, just at the starting of the 7-year period. We'll see. I don't know exactly, and I think there's a dual fulfillment prophecy there, but we're going to see how this plays out. But significant information about the coup and how it potentially relates to Gog Magog. So I'll leave it there, guys. Thanks for watching. And as we continue to put the dots together of end-time Bible prophecy, ultimately, I hope you know Jesus Christ as your Lord and Savior. He's coming soon. The world is going to get far worse before he does come, however, to bring righteousness. It's going to get far worse for you and I. I think you need to get your hearts prepared. Prepare for the worst, hope for the best. I hope I'm raptured out, but I think we're going to be here for tribulation the first 3.5 years. We will not be here for the great tribulation or the wrath of God the last 3.5 years. So be prepared, folks. I think some hard times are coming. Thanks for watching. We'll see you in the next video.